How has COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated trafficking in persons?
Online sexual exploitation of children, or OSEC, is a borderless and transnational crime which impacts children globally, more so the Filipino children. Poverty, advancement in technology, and its accessibility without parental supervision and awareness, social norms and misconceptions are just some of the drivers of this issue. During the community quarantine period, significant increase of reports of OSEC have been received from our foreign counterparts, since children are spending more time online unsupervised. And some are even forced into OSEC because their parents lack economic opportunities brought about by the long lockdown. Below are the experiences of our frontliners amidst the pandemic, which narrates the gaps, challenges, and triumphs we had faced despite numerous limitations. Let us watch this.
COVID pandemic may have been worsened the trafficking in person situation in the country. As far as the online sexual abuse and exploitation, or OSAEC, is concerned, due to the implementation of community quarantine across the country, limiting and to some extent depriving people from going out of their houses to work while the government is fighting the spread of COVID. The confinement of children for a long time in their respective dwellings had added their time spending more on the social media is among the drivers on the possibility of worsening OSAIC. Furthermore, data from this center and the National Baseline Study on Violence Against Children, Philippines in 2015 revealed that abusers are often known to the victims, such as family members perpetrating on children's vulnerability within their homes.
In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, there had been reports on the worsening situation of online sexual abuse and exploitation of children in the Philippines. As anticipated early on, the aggravation may have been the result of a number of contributory factors. Quarantine restrictions had made children stay at home, giving them more time to access the internet with barely minimum or no supervision at all. Another factor is extreme poverty brought about by the pandemic, wherein the economic condition of the poor deteriorated even more. Children tend to view OSEC as a means to subsist on a day-to-day basis. Similarly, at the other end of the line is the perpetrator who gets to spend more of his time sitting in front of the computer, searching for potential victims and taking advantage of their vulnerabilities.
This is probably due to its strong digital infrastructure. The Dutch Minister of Justice gave an ultimatum to 17 major web hosting providers to delete all child pornography from their servers before September, or their names will be published.
There was a stigma on our seafarers as vectors of COVID-19 virus. And coming home unwelcome may just render the situation rife for trafficking, if only to have another chance of sailing again and being away from all the pressures at home. At the same time, for those who remained on the vessels in the high seas, they had to endure working extended periods because there was difficulty and significant delays in changing the vessel's crew, as ports and airports globally had to shut down their operations to contain the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Leaving them no choice on the matter makes their situation akin to bandit labor.
The economic fallout from the coronavirus pandemic is driving more people into forced labor or sexual exploitation. COVID-19 made the already vulnerable sectors like children, young girls and boys, women, and informal workers like fishers even more at risk of being exploited because they lack economic, health, and social protection. The limited livelihood options available during this time leaves parents and guardians to take what is offered, even if this entails hazardous and unacceptable working conditions, or worse, peddling children to sexual predators online. Traffickers are not shutting down. On the other hand, they are innovating and capitalizing on this chaos.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented effects to the activities of the economy. The different community quarantine classifications imposed by the government authorities somehow reduced productivity of establishments. Establishments closed, either temporarily or permanently. It resulted to higher unemployment rate and reduced demand for labor supply. Workers were placed in floating status and it cost their sources of income. The foregoing difficulties vis-a-vis poverty may have possibly led or caused the exacerbation of trafficking in persons of workers who might have been forced to cling to substandard work arrangements even if it was against their will.
COVID-19 actually aggravated trafficking in persons by causing employment issues among Filipinos. A number of local businesses were forced to close down due to the pandemic. Not only that, but international commerce as well, wherein most overseas Filipino workers or our OFWs rely on for their income were greatly affected. This includes Filipinos who were supposed to be legally deployed abroad as OFWs but had their departures delayed or cancelled, and also OFWs came home for a supposed quick vacation but were stranded in the country due to the travel restrictions implemented. As a result, the facilitators of PIP pounced on the opportunity to exploit Filipinos who experience financial instability by offering promises of circumventing current guidelines on travel restrictions and become undocumented workers abroad. It has also been observed that those involved in PIP facilitation relies greatly on online communications such as social media platforms, chat rooms, web meeting applications, and the like to search for or lure their next potential victims. This scenario actually opens vulnerable Filipinos not just to the dangers of illegal recruitment, but also other threats such as online sexual exploitation.
One of the worst affected industries during the pandemic is the overseas employment industry. A lot of our OFWs were displaced and lost their jobs. In the local scene, for example, we went as high as 17% in the unemployment in the Philippines because of the pandemic. In other words, both overseas and local, there are a lot of workers who lost their job. These were the times when the illegal recruiters also were very active in victimizing a lot of job applicants, including our OFWs. Let me take, for example, the issue of these German language training centers immediately prior to the pandemic. These entities know for a fact that there will be a big demand for the HCWs, or the healthcare workers, particularly nurses. For example, in Germany, a lot of German employers are in need of hiring nurses during this pandemic. No? So they were offering jobs which are not actually existing. And we all know that German language centers or training centers are not allowed to engage in recruitment. We were able to conduct surveillance, and then because of the positive result that they were engaged in recruitment without valid reason and without valid job employment opportunities there, we closed these training centers. We have these 4 travel and tours. These entities were involved also in the illegal recruitment and were able to receive 100, no less than 100 OFWs. No? They offered low-skilled jobs bound to New Zealand, Canada, and Korea. It is notable to mention also the surge of what you call online scams. These online scams victimize a lot of applicant OFWs using the social media platform. They have this FB page wherein they offer job opportunities, but if you verify these job opportunities, they are non-existent. So POA, through its active participation in preventing and taking down these FB pages, we were able to issue cease and desist orders, and we were able to coordinate with the FB personnel and requested for the closure of these FB pages. So these are a few of the activities that the POA had undertaken during this time of pandemic.
Modern slavery exists before, during and after crises such as COVID-19. It knows no borders, impacting both home, in transit and destination countries. Sadly, it is also one of the most lucrative illicit activities in the world. The current public health emergency has created new risks and increased the pre-existing vulnerabilities of certain populations. In particular, the economic fallout brought about by the pandemic has made women and girls even more likely to become victims of forced labour and trafficking. The global lockdown and restrictions on movement have also disrupted efforts to identify and rescue victims and hindered access to vital support services. Issues relating to irregular migration and illegal exit points to leave the country for work worsened with the closing of country borders and regular routes.
We are aware that the pandemic has ravaged jobs not only in the Philippines but outside. So I think there are now around 3.8 million unemployed persons in the Philippines. 1 million OFWs who have been affected either through loss of jobs or decrease in their earning capacities. So what's happening is that there is a pool of workers who are desperate to find jobs. These are fertile hunting grounds for traffickers and for illegal recruiters. Some of them opted not to return home. They opted to try to find work, and as such, they are not the inherent monitoring mechanism that is present because of the legitimate labor recruitment process that they underwent. It disappears, and it becomes very difficult for government and even for their primary recruitment agencies to track them because they have already decided to switch jobs. So the monitoring becomes more difficult. Deployment costs have increased so much. Plane fares have already tripled. The recruitment industry, and I think we have representatives from the recruitment industry here, a number of them have already declared bankruptcy. Some of them have stopped operations. Filipinos who are from the Bangsamoro areas, it might be a lot easier, cheaper for them to go through the back door, to just go through Malaysia rather than pass through all of the processes here in international airports.